All right, so welcome to our info session about how to build your health tech startup, especially with KAPSLY, and how we can support you. Like I mentioned, in the next 30 minutes or so, I will give you an introduction what we're doing, how we're working with startups. I'll provide some examples as well, and let you know how we can then move ahead if you want to. So those are basically some of the topics we will cover, and please feel free to interrupt or ask if you have questions on some of the slides, and I'm happy to explain. Afterwards, we will have also enough time to discuss your questions or comments you have or topics that are relevant to you at the moment. So why are we doing this at KAPSLY in general? Our mission is basically to accelerate the time to market, to reduce the risk for health tech founders. There are many obstacles in the way to launching a medtech device or anything in the healthcare industry for that matter. And basically, I've also accompanied many product launches in my career, and this is something where I am really passionate about helping other startups to bring their solutions to the market. So we are not an accelerator or something like this. We really provide hands-on support. We say often venture building, but we're also not a real venture builder. We're really a community of partners that want to make startups successful, more or less. So that covers really the operational part, but also the financial part. Why do we have this intro session? I mean, it gives you understanding how you can take a startup to the next level, how we can support you with doing this. We will also dive into cash flow management a little bit, because that is always one of the key topics. How can you compensate the partners, the service providers, the employees, etc. But also, how can you raise money? That's at the end, it's all about cash flow management. This is sort of like the first mandatory call we usually say before we jump into a one-on-one call, where we would like to discuss really what are your challenges at the moment and your needs to individualize that according to you. So I appreciate that you guys are joining this to give me the opportunity to explain this to you all at once. So briefly about myself, as I mentioned, I founded KAPSLY around 3 years ago and Medtech 1 year ago. I used to work as a global product manager for neurosurgical implants. I've evaluated new product ideas. I've actually set up a product management department, more or less, at a smaller company at Medtech that grew from 50 to 120 people. So also coordinated and managed those development activities. And then at B. Braun, I accompanied the product launches in different countries, and it was actually quite an exciting time, because we had about 4 products that received a complete makeover, so like 2.0 versions, like completely new products, and launched 2 new products at that time as well. And then, of course, you can imagine they don't launch at every country at the same time, but it's like a approach that takes some time as well. So that was definitely a very interesting experience. But for myself, I didn't want to pursue a corporate career, and actually thought about launching something myself. But then did the MBA in St. Gallen, and this is how I came to Switzerland, and am still here in Zurich for the last 7 years. Okay, this is also the team, to give you a background there. So Jan and I have founded Jan joined as an advisor and later as a co-founder as well, together with Max and Andy, and Patrick is helping us in sales parts. And at Medtech we have a large advisory board as well of very experienced professionals that cover different aspects. Like some are doctors, some have more pharma background, some have been executives at medtech companies or in hospitals. So we try to make sure to bring in diverse perspectives there when we are also evaluating startups. To give you a quick introduction to our values, so we see ourselves really as entrepreneurs as well. All our partners are entrepreneurs, so we really want to be on an eye level with you. We do not tell you what to do. We believe that entrepreneurs are at the end the ones that make the best decisions for their own companies. So that is also one of our approaches. So we really act on eye level. And what we provide is really this big picture view. Sometimes it's also actually good to have a bit of a distance to the daily operations of your company to see that, but then also to narrow in on those topics that are relevant to take it to the next level. And yeah, in that sense, we're very result oriented and yes, focus on those things that move you along. So how do we do this? Like I mentioned, there are two organizations. Medtech is actually a non-profit association. Basically, anyone who wants to invest in early stage health tech startups can become a member there. So private individuals or also family offices, or also companies that don't have their own corporate VC fund. And KAPSLY is a network of service partners and experts where we really provide hands-on services. And I will explain what we're doing there exactly. Some of the challenges we see, for example, when it comes to fundraising, and maybe you can identify with some of them, is startups that need a lot of money just to keep R&D going, but not yet having like validation about their product and solution and why that is really needed. For example, often then becomes very difficult to move on with the funding round. Or in sales, also often one of the challenges if you try to sell to corporates or hospitals, but have not done that before, have no experience in the team that have that commercial background, especially sometimes for university spin-offs, and that can be a problem. Or in product development, of course, complying to industry standards, having QMS systems and so on is important also then to move along and quickly achieve the required CE or FDA mark, for example. Strategic topics, if your tech solution could be used in many areas and you try to keep a foot in the door of potential opportunities, then sometimes you're lacking a bit of a focus, people go in different directions. That can also slow things down, of course. Or same with the business model, which requires a lot of, follow-up, structured, basically discipline. That's the word I was looking for. So it's not like a one-time activity and then you put it in a drawer, but the business model canvas actually needs to be looked at constantly in a structured manner to build business models that can be successful in the future. So those are just some examples and areas where we also support, and we have summarized all those different things in the KAPSLY roadmap. So you can see here at the top the idea phase, concept phase, so the different maturity stages of a startup. And on the left, you see different areas where the activities are needed. And you can find this map actually, or this matrix, on our website, and every field there is clickable and gives a brief explainer what should be focused on. And this is something we also use as a guideline to figure out, hey, maybe are there some gaps, or where can we really support you? Where are areas maybe where you are lacking some resources as well? Great. So how do we help exactly? So like I mentioned, we provide this big picture view so that we also see, hey, where do you want to go, right? So that everyone is going in the same direction, but then really also focus on those specifics to not miss any steps in between. Yes, so this is basically how we are helping startups. And like I mentioned, there also focus is key, really doing the homework. And so this way we also want to accelerate the go-to-market or achieving your value inflection points and the milestones, so to be also more attractive to investors at the end. One example, or one company we've worked with still is Health Yourself. They've been the first investment we did at Medtech last year. They've also worked or still work with one of our partners, especially for marketing, and that has helped them a lot to increase their revenue to large monthly figures. And it was really great to see this progress over time and the value we could create with them. Another example, actually, that was the first startup that won the KAPSLY Award. So our own proof of concept was the KAPSLY Award 3 years ago, and they provided this exoskeleton in combination with an app for patients for rehabilitation to learn walking again, and they received support from our partners regarding a regulatory roadmap and also for the development of this app from our partners for software development. And in their case, actually, since it was also part of the KAPSLY Award, they had no cash outflow there and got those services worth 70,000 francs, not for free, but it can be converted to equity, or they can pay it back later and before the funding round. So it provides a lot of flexibility for them and enable them to achieve those milestones, let's say, move forward before they had a significant funding round. So yeah, one of the questions we've been looking at, hey, why don't startups get services directly, right? Because at the end, you raise money, you use that money then to hire people or to build your product to move further. Why isn't there a way that you can directly get those resources you need and really save a lot of time? Because especially nowadays, fundraising will take at least 6 months, maybe rather 12 or so. And you're in that moment not really working on your core activities, you're not really creating value for the company. However, of course, there are some challenges to this, like finding the right service providers and who is at all open to such kind of terms, you know. The valuation of services, are you getting the best services? Is this the best match? What has been a good fit for your friend, maybe in another business, might not be the best match for you and for your company. And if you do especially like these sweat equity deals, then always difficult to get this equity back, and you might end up with a difficult cap table, which then investors don't like. So those are all some of the risks. And also for service providers, there are these risks because there are no investors, there are no lawyers, ideally, like usually, and hence they don't really know this very well. And what we have figured out that more deals than we expected are actually done, these like kind of service for equity deals, but they're often done relatively badly. So this was also one of the motivation to provide a central platform to really leverage this potential of the collaboration of startups and service providers. And but so we thought about how can this be done properly. And the thing is, with equity, it's sort of like getting married. Yeah, and nobody really gets married on the first date, right? And you usually want to get to know your partner. You want to see if this works for the long term. You're building trust, and then maybe you take this commitment. And this is also what we have considered in developing our options and solutions, how to set up such collaborations just as an option, and also thought about what are alternatives. This is all about cash management at the end, cash preservation, and how you can achieve more with less money, basically. And to give you an overview, there are different options here. So you see in this chart the reward from a service provider perspective and also the risk. And obviously stocks are the most risky. It's also pretty complex. So the size of the bubble shows the complexity. But there are options in between, like virtual shares. So maybe you heard of phantom stocks that you use to incentivize your employees, or convertible loans you probably heard of. But there are also other options like shared revenue, or licensing deals or supplier credits. So those are things we have looked at, and depending on what kind of relationship you want to enter, one makes more sense than the other, and this is basically what we help with as well. And so service for equity basically means you compensate a service provider with company shares instead of with cash. Alternative is you raise money, you give equity for that, and then you spend that money on service providers or someone else, right? And yeah, other terms are sweat equity. That's usually referred to the internal team, or smart capital, usually referring to business angels that help with their network. Or service investing, we at least use that as a more general term, which includes all these options I just showed before. And I believe we are really the only experts in this field, and I was surprised that there was not more knowledge or support about this, because when we did our research and talk to startups, this was sort of more common than we expected, but often not really set up in a very strategic way. And often those possibilities are not yet considered when thinking about a fundraising strategy, for example, to think about who are really the partners that one wants to work with over the long term, where one really wants to align interests, etc. Sometimes can be very effective as well. So the compensation models I mentioned, we offer as well, like the repayment plan. That's more or less a default option. And this can still later be converted to company shares. So then it's kind of like a convertible loan, and either it is paid back or the remaining amount is converted to company shares. We never recommend doing this like service for equity right away. And another option also revenue shares, but this is really for companies that have recurring revenues and where it's easier to predict also future revenues. The potential of service investing. So why would startups do this? I mean, it's a very direct form of investment, right? It can save you a lot of time. It's often the first investors or the rather early stage maybe. And it helps really to execute faster, to reduce this operational risk, and potentially to increase your valuation if you can achieve milestones quicker. And for service providers, there are also different reasons and motivating factors to do this. So for them, it's a way to work on exciting projects, to develop an innovative profile, but also to keep their employees motivated. And of course, it's also a way for them to build long-term customer relationships and to support startups when they might not have so much money, and then work with them over a longer term. Yeah, and for them, it's also a way to invest where they don't need to invest money, but can actually invest their resources and their expertise. So how do we sort of compare, or how do we fit into the landscape, in the startup landscape? First of all, we are an open network. So both at KAPSLY and at Medtech, we work with different partners where we know they have the healthcare expertise and that they provide really services that make startups successful. So that is really important to us. So that differentiates us, for example, from company builders, where it's usually more sort of exclusive network, where you have less resources available, or the ones that you have in the team, and often they work on their own ideas and own projects. So it's also sometimes maybe more difficult to get in. And then on the other hand, we try to make every startup we work with successful. So we don't follow the power law, meaning that you would need 100 startups in a portfolio to have one that becomes a unicorn, right? So this is more from an investor's perspective. And this is different here as well. Because we really think about what are the solutions for you, and it's very hands-on and not a general program or so. So yeah, takeaways from this so far is to really focus on the core activities, especially comparing it to like accelerator programs, not just on like fundraising and pitch decks, which can be a distraction sometimes if one has to pitch again every week and out and so on. And of course, talking to customers very early on, thinking about reimbursement codes, thinking about the risk class of the product and those kind of things, who are users, who are decision makers, because the sales processes are very difficult as well, of course, in this medtech environment. And we are basically there to get you to the market faster. And to finalize this, I showed you this, I'm introducing some of the partners we work with. So we also have some, let's say, general partners like law firms. Makes us actually our legal counsel as well. They're really focused on commercial law, also data protection, competition regulation. Trustwork, another general partner for HR and accounting. Digital Health Port is very much focused on also helping Swiss and Scandinavian startups entering the German market, mainly digital health companies, of course. And they're also developing products for the German market, and really have a good network, like a sales network there as well. And they can also support even operationally with sales and marketing. HKT Design is based in Basel. They help with user design, basically, for medical devices and electronics. So also something that needs to be thought about very early on. Or medical engineering, also very experienced founder helping with engineering. He also had a successful exit before. We work with Effecto Medical, for example, often to implement a QMS system and develop like a regulatory roadmap. Or medical board, if it comes to more of the KOL management. We also work with research professionals. They have a large network, actually, if you need to do clinical studies in Eastern Europe, which is a great cost advantage. And they provide the whole suite of services from designing the protocol to then actually doing the reports and the analysis, etc. And we also work with Zili, for example, for marketing or branding, and also online marketing, maybe especially for digital health startups. And yeah, so mostly the startups we work with are actually in this validation, market validation and testing phase, just before like market entry or around that phase. So most of the startups, I'd say, are these two phases here. Sometimes we then also help when already in the concept phase to close some final gaps there. Yes, oh, and I want to introduce to you the KAPSLY Circles, which is an offering we started because, I mean, there is a lot already in Switzerland. I sometimes feel like startups are maybe even a little bit overcoached because there's so many different programs, which are great to a certain extent. But then once you need to actually execute, this might be a bit more of a challenge, and sometimes founder can be a bit overwhelmed. So we really have this hands-on approach here, where we really do an assessment, a full-day workshop to define a strategy on different topics. I'll come to that on the next slide. And then the unique thing is really these peer-to-peer meetings, which are also moderated by Jan Fulcher, who's one of the most active InnoSwiss coaches in Switzerland, actually. So he also knows the other side of it. We developed this program here together. And here it's really about sharing your goals and sharing your problems as well, because often founders have those and it's difficult to really dive into those deeper. And it's not about giving you additional advice. Like I said, we believe that you at the end have to make those decisions that are best for your company. But it's about sharing experiences. So if I had already had this experience, I can share this. So really this I form is important. And I'll not share my brother's experience, for example, or something that I have heard about. So this is something important. Everything is confidential, so it's really like a trusted environment for founders. And then these experts accompany you over 6 months to implement the goals that you have set for yourself. Yeah, so yeah, there are some rules for the circles. It's really bound for one person, so there's one founder that will participate in this. They should commit to 6 months. And those are the topics we're offering. I will dive into those here. So here you also see the experts for business model validation. We have Aurelie Moser. She's been head of innovation at Roche and did a lot of business model innovation training directly with Strategizer. And at accompanies startups and also bigger companies in developing new business models. And Lida actually worked at a venture build and also led a company as a CEO to a successful exit. So also a lot of experience there. Sales is taken care of by Patrick. He has a lot of B2B sales experience. For strategy, we have Sandra Neumann. She used to be general manager at Baxter and also started ETH spin-off, or took over ETH spin-off, where they raised over 15 million. And myself, it's one of the things that I have really done a lot, those strategy workshops and this methodology, because here also, like with business model validation, also I believe discipline is important. Strategy is not a once a year activity, but something that needs to be taken care of. And so the good thing here, and with all of those circles, is that you really learn those methodologies that you can then use for yourself afterwards. And we have Jerome for product management. What is really interesting about him is that also for Medtech devices, he can implement like agile methodologies, which is a very interesting approach that he has also done at Striker. And for fundraising, again, Sandra already mentioned her. to you. So why that saves you time, like I already said, because we can focus on the core activities. We work with high quality service partners. We are providing the contract templates and the whole network. So we take care of all of that, so you can focus also on building a company. Some of the benefits we want to provide and resemble are from the venture studio approach, basically, because there's a lot of data on that they are actually much faster. For example, if you look at the time from 0 to Series A in 25 months instead of 56 months, and so forth. So that is one of the benefits we provide, because we believe also speed to market is very important also in medtech. Yeah, so we want to give you access to such a community and to those kind of benefits, and yeah, help you also with the methodologies that you can use later on: matchmaking, faster execution, flexible payment terms, especially if you want to forge strategic partnerships, and our angel network. And yeah, also provide you a possibility to keep your partners motivated. Great. So that's it from my side. If you want to explore this further, we can do that in a one-on-one call. The next step would be to basically join our network. You can then think about where do you need support the most, create a service request. You will get proposals from different agencies. Yeah, and we also help, of course, with the negotiation of the terms, and then ideally to achieve milestones faster, be ready for your next funding round, basically. And if you seek funding directly through MedCap, we focus mainly on pre-seed and seed startups, by the way, so relatively early. And there is a funding application basically that needs to be submitted, and our jury will review this. On the left you see the score, and the jury score an example. So we are looking at the team, traction and strategy. We're looking also at the support network. So if you have been part of certain accelerator programs, if you have won grants and things like that, that will contribute here. Your competitive advantage, including IP, etc. The market size and so on, and fundability, basically. So if you need, for example, 100 million to bring a solution to the market, then maybe it's not so interesting for business angels, but it's something that doesn't only requires, let's say, a few million, and can be commercialized quickly, and then it's very attractive, of course. And by the way, here we use syndication, which means we are bundling the investment tickets from all the individual investors. So we are basically like the investment manager there and coordinate the investment. And for that, we're using Leva to facilitate this process. Great. Yeah, we have this Swiss health tech ecosystem map, by the way, that we publish once a year. If you're interested in learning more about the players in Switzerland, there's also a funding report. You can download this on our website. And that's it from my side. Here's my email, so please feel free to reach out if you have further questions. And now I'm looking forward to your questions.